24th February 1947, New York. Paramount Theatre. 10 o'clock at night. Stage lights blazing. 2,500 people seated, waiting. Because that night, two legends shared one stage. Louis Armstrong and Bing Crosby, the two biggest names in American music, performing together. Louis was on stage, playing West End blues, that famous song, the recording that defined his career. His trumpet filled the theater. The audience was mesmerized. Everything was perfect. Then something happened. Unexpected, shocking, inexplicable. Louis, in the middle of the song, lowered his trumpet. Quietly, slowly, without saying a word, he walked off stage. The orchestra stopped. The audience froze in confusion. What was happening? Was Louis ill? Angry? What could make Louis Armstrong abandon his trumpet mid-performance? At the side of the stage, a manager waited, holding a small piece of paper. When Louis saw that note, everything stopped, and what was written on that paper would shatter Louis Armstrong's world. 10 minutes later, Bing Crosby would find Louis backstage, and what happened between them that night would change not just that evening, but both their lives forever. But what was in that note? What happened in that dressing room? And why did Bing Crosby, at 46 years old, at the peak of his career, sit on a floor and cry with Louis Armstrong until dawn? Before we explore this heartbreaking story of loss, friendship, and the true cost of success, please take a moment to subscribe to our channel and hit that notification bell. What you're about to witness will remind you what truly matters in life. The information in this video is compiled from documented interviews, archival news, books, and historical reports. For narrative purposes, some parts are dramatized and may not represent 100% factual accuracy. We also use AI-assisted visuals and AI narration for cinematic reconstruction. The use of AI does not mean the story is fake. It is a storytelling tool. Our goal is to recreate the spirit of that era as faithfully as possible. Enjoy watching. To understand what happened that February night at Paramount Theatre, we need to go back. Not just weeks or months, but years. We need to understand Louis Armstrong's relationship with his mother, May Ann. And we need to understand the impossible choices that success forced him to make. Louis Armstrong was born August 4, 1901, in the poorest neighborhood of New Orleans, a place called Baco Town. His father, William Armstrong, abandoned the family when Louis was an infant. His mother, May Ann, was left alone to raise Louis and his younger sister, Beatrice. May Ann worked whatever jobs she could find, cleaning houses, washing clothes. Sometimes she worked as a domestic servant in wealthy white homes, scrubbing floors on her hands and knees for pennies. The work was backbreaking, humiliating, barely enough to keep her children fed. But May Ann never complained, never gave up. She sang while she worked, hummed melodies, and when she came home exhausted at night, she'd sing lullabies to Louis and Beatrice. Those lullabies were Louis' first exposure to music. His mother's voice, tired but tender, singing him to sleep in their tiny room. Louis never forgot those songs, never forgot his mother's voice. When Louis was 11, he got into trouble, fired a gun during a New Year's celebration, and was sent to the colored wife's home, essentially a reform school for black boys. There he learned to play the trumpet, discovered his gift, his calling. When Louis was released at 14, he returned to his mother. By then he was determined to become a musician, to lift himself and his family out of poverty through music. May Ann supported Louis's dream, even when it seemed impossible, even when people told her a black boy from the poorest neighborhood had no chance. She believed in him. "You got something special, Louis," she'd tell him. "Don't let nobody take that away from you." Louis worked odd jobs during the day, delivered coal, sold newspapers. At night he played trumpet in small clubs and street corners. Every penny he earned he gave to May Ann, to help with rent, to buy food for Beatrice. By his late teens, Louis was gaining recognition in New Orleans' music scene. playing with King Oliver's band, getting noticed. And as opportunities grew, so did the distance between Louis and his mother. In 1922, King Oliver invited Louis to join his band in Chicago. It was the opportunity Louis had been waiting for, a chance to play professionally, to make real money, to escape New Orleans' poverty. But it meant leaving his mother. Louis went to Mayanne, told her about the Chicago opportunity. She smiled, hugged him. "You go, baby. You go make something of yourself." Louis promised he'd send money, promised he'd visit, promised he wouldn't forget her. And Louis kept the first promise. From 1922 onward, he sent money to Mayanne regularly, every month, sometimes more when he had it. Mayanne was able to stop doing the most difficult work, to live more comfortably, to help Beatrice. But Louis didn't keep the other promises. He didn't visit. Not in 1923, not in 1924, not in 1925. His career exploded. He was recording, touring, becoming famous. There was always another show, another opportunity, another city. And New Orleans, where his mother lived, became harder and harder to get back to. But there was another reason Louis didn't go back to New Orleans, a reason he didn't talk about publicly. In 1947, the Jim Crow laws were still in full effect across the American South. Racial segregation was legal, enforced, dangerous for black Americans who didn't follow the rules. For a successful black entertainer like Louis to travel through the South meant navigating constant humiliation and potential violence. Separate entrances, separate bathrooms, separate hotels, usually in the worst parts of town, being refused service at restaurants, being threatened for being too successful, or not knowing your place. Louis had experienced it all. The hatred in people's eyes, the slurs, the danger. And while he'd learned to navigate it, to smile through it, to survive it, the thought of bringing that world back to his mother's doorstep terrified him. What if something happened while he was visiting? What if his presence, his fame brought trouble to Mayanne? So Louis stayed away, sent money instead of himself, sent letters instead of visits, and told himself he'd go back soon, after this tour, after this recording session, after things calmed down. But things never calmed down. By 1947, Louis Armstrong was one of the most famous musicians in the world. He'd recorded hundreds of songs, toured across America and Europe, played for presidents and kings. His face was recognized globally, but he hadn't seen his mother in person in over 20 years. Mayanne understood, or at least she said she did. In her letters to Louis, she never complained, never made him feel guilty, just told him she was proud, that she played his records for the neighbors, that everyone in New Orleans knew her son was somebody special. But Louis felt the weight, the guilt, the knowledge that success had cost him something irreplaceable. Time with the woman who'd sacrificed everything for him. 3 weeks before that February night at Paramount Theatre, Louis had written a letter to Mayanne, the last letter he'd ever write to her. In it he told her about the upcoming New York shows with Bing Crosby, about how successful he'd become. And he made a promise. "Mama, after this tour, I'm coming home, gonna fix up your house, make it real nice. You won't have to work another day. Just wait for me. I'm coming soon." The letter arrived in New Orleans on February 23rd, one day before Mayanne passed away. She never got to read it. A neighbor found it on her kitchen table, unopened, the morning after she died. To understand what happened that night at Paramount Theatre, we also need to understand Bing Crosby. Bing was 46 in 1947, one of the biggest stars in entertainment, movies, radio, music. He seemed to have it all: success, fame, family. But Bing carried his own grief, his own regrets. Bing's father, Harry Crosby, had died in December 1944, just 2.5 years before that February night. Bing had been in Hollywood when he got the news, filming a movie, couldn't get back to Washington in time. His father died before Bing could say goodbye. That loss had haunted Bing, changed him.
made him question everything about his priorities, made him wonder if success was worth the cost of missing the people who mattered most. Bing never talked about it publicly, kept his grief private, but it was there, always there. When Bing was asked to perform with Louis Armstrong at Paramount Theatre, he was honored. Louis was a legend, someone Bing deeply respected. They'd met before, performed on radio together, had a professional friendship, but that February night would transform their relationship into something much deeper. The Paramount Theatre booking was significant for reasons beyond just two stars performing together. In 1947, it was still rare for black and white performers to share equal billing, to be presented as peers rather than headliner and guest. The fact that the marquee listed Louis Armstrong and Bing Crosby with equal prominence was revolutionary, a statement that talent transcended race. That evening, February 24th, the show was going magnificently. Bing had opened with several songs. The audience loved him. Then Louis took the stage. The energy in the room shifted, became electric.
Louis's trumpet could make people feel things they couldn't put into words. Joy, sorrow, hope, all at once. When Louis began West End Blues, the audience fell silent. This was the song, the 1928 recording that had changed jazz forever. Everyone in that theater knew they were witnessing something special. Louis' trumpet sang, each note perfect, emotional, transcendent. The irony was devastating. Here was Louis playing the song that represented the peak of his success, the culmination of everything he'd worked for. And at that exact moment, he was about to learn he'd lost the person who'd made it all possible. Have you ever achieved something great, but realized too late you couldn't share it with the person who mattered most? Share your thoughts in the comments. During Louis' solo, a stage manager appeared at the side of the stage, holding a small piece of paper. This was how urgent news was delivered during live performances in 1947. A note, brief, discreet. The stage manager stood at the edge of the stage, just out of the audience's view, waiting for Louis to notice. Louis saw him mid-phrase, saw the paper, and something in the manager's expression made Louis' stomach drop. But Louis kept playing, professional to his core, finished the phrase, then another, but his eyes kept going back to that piece of paper. Finally, in the middle of a measure, Louis stopped, lowered his trumpet. The orchestra, confused, played a few more notes then stopped. The silence in that massive theater was absolute. 2,500 people holding their breath. Louis walked to the side of the stage, took the paper from the manager's hand. Read it. 3 sentences. Louis' urgent message from New Orleans. Your mother Mayanne passed away this morning. Our deepest condolences. Louis read it twice, then a third time, as if reading it again might change the words. The paper slipped from his fingers, floated to the stage floor. Louis stood there, frozen. The theater was so quiet you could hear people breathing. Bing Crosby, waiting in the wings for his next entrance, saw something was terribly wrong. Louis turned, looked at the audience, opened his mouth as if to speak, but no words came out. He looked at his trumpet, the instrument that had been his voice for decades. But even his trumpet had nothing to say in this moment. Louis walked off stage, slowly, like he was moving through water. The audience murmured, confused, concerned. Bing moved quickly, followed Louis backstage, found him in the corridor, standing, staring at nothing. Louis, what happened? Louis didn't respond, didn't even seem to hear. Bing gently guided Louis toward his dressing room, got him inside, closed the door. The sounds of the confused theater muffled. Louis sank to the floor, not sitting, collapsing, his trumpet still in his hand. And then something broke inside him. Louis Armstrong, who'd faced poverty, racism, violence, and every hardship imaginable with a smile, started to cry. Not quiet tears, deep wrenching sobs that shook his entire body. Bing stood there, unsure what to do. He'd never seen Louis like this. Never seen this man who always seemed unbreakable, actually break. Louis pulled his knees to his chest, rocked back and forth, and started whispering. Singing really. A melody Bing didn't recognize. A lullaby. Simple, tender. Mayan's lullaby. The one she'd sung to Louis when he was a child. The one he'd never forgotten. Bing sat down on the floor. Next to Louis, said nothing. Just sat with him. After several minutes, Louis' sobs quieted enough for him to speak. His voice was raw, broken. She's gone, Bing. My mama's gone. Bing felt his own throat tighten. Louis, I'm so sorry. Louis shook his head. I never brought her to see me perform. Not once. She heard me on the radio, played my records, but she never got to see me on stage. Never got to see what she made possible. The guilt in Louis' voice was crushing. I sent her money, every month, but I didn't give her me. I was always too busy, always one more show, one more city, always telling myself I'd go back to New Orleans soon. But I never did. And now she's gone. Bing understood this pain intimately. His own father, his own guilt, his own big I'll see him next time. That never came. Louis, she knew you loved her. Louis looked at Bing with red swollen eyes. Did she? I sent money, sent letters, but I never went home. What kind of son does that? Bing's own eyes filled with tears. The kind who's trying to take care of everyone. The kind who thinks there'll be time later. The kind who doesn't realize until it's too late that the people we love don't need our money or our success. They just need us. Louis stared at Bing. Something in Bing's voice, the pain there, made Louis understand this wasn't theoretical for Bing. You lost someone too. Bing nodded. My father. December 44. I was in Hollywood. Couldn't get back in time. He died before I could say goodbye. Before I could tell him I don't know. That I loved him. That I was sorry for missing so many Christmases. So many birthdays. The two men sat on that dressing room floor. Two of the most successful entertainers in the world. And shared the same grief. The same guilt. The same understanding that success sometimes costs us the things that matter most. Please subscribe. If this story is touching your heart, what happens next shows the true power of friendship in our darkest moments. Louis spoke quietly. I wrote her a letter 3 weeks ago, told her I was coming home, that I was finally coming to see her. That letter probably arrived yesterday. She never got to read it. Bing closed his eyes. The cruel timing, the missed connection. Louis, I have to believe our parents knew, somewhere, somehow, that we loved them, that we were doing our best. Louis wanted to believe that, but the guilt was overwhelming. I was playing the song that made me famous when I found out she died. West End Blues, the song that changed everything for me. The irony, Bing, I achieved everything she wanted for me. Became successful beyond her wildest dreams. And in doing so, I lost the time with her. Lost the chance to share it with her. Bing understood. That's the trap, isn't it? We work so hard to give them a better life, to make them proud, to prove we're worthy of their sacrifices. But in chasing success we lose the time with them. And time is the only thing they really wanted. They sat in silence. Two men. Two careers built on bringing joy to millions, but unable to bring time back to the people who'd loved them first. After a long while, Louis spoke again. What do I do now, Bing? How do I go on when I can't fix this? Can't make it right? Bing thought about his own journey through grief. You honor her. You keep playing. You keep bringing beauty into the world, because that's what she wanted. She didn't sacrifice for you to stop. She sacrificed so you could soar, and every note you play from now on carries her in it. Louis looked at his trumpet, the instrument Mayan had never seen him play in person. I don't know if I can play again without thinking about this. Bing put his hand on Louis's shoulder. You will think about it, every time, and that's okay. That's how we keep them with us. By remembering, by feeling the loss, by letting it deepen our music instead of destroying it. They talked through the night.
sharing memories, sharing regrets, crying together. Two grown men, two legends, allowing themselves to be human, to be vulnerable, to admit that success didn't protect them from grief. Outside, the theatre management had explained to the audience that Lewis had received tragic personal news. The show was postponed. People understood, sent their sympathy. The next day, the theatre management contacted Lewis, told him they'd cancel the remaining shows, give him time to grieve. But Lewis surprised everyone. "No, I'm performing tonight." Bing tried to dissuade him. "Lewis, you don't have to. Nobody expects you to perform the day after your mother died." But Lewis was resolute. "I have to. For her, she never got to see me perform. But I can perform for her. One last time." That evening, February 25th, Louis Armstrong walked onto the Paramount Theatre stage. The audience was gentle, respectful. They knew. Louis stood at the microphone. "Tonight I'm going to play something for my mother. She passed away yesterday. This song is called, 'Do You Know What It Means to Miss New Orleans?' It's about home, about the place and people you carry with you always." Louis began to play, and the music that came out of his trumpet that night was different, deeper, more honest, more painful, more beautiful. Every note carried 20 years of guilt, 20 years of love, 20 years of distance and longing. Bing watched from the wings, tears streaming down his face. Half the audience was crying, not because the music was sad, but because it was so honest, so human. When Louis finished, the applause was different too. Not entertainment applause, reverence. That performance became legendary. People who were there never forgot it. The night Louis Armstrong played for his mother, the night grief transformed into art. After the show, Bing found Louis backstage. "That was the most beautiful thing I've ever heard." Louis nodded, exhausted. "I feel like I finally let her hear me, really hear me." Not the successful Louis Armstrong, just Louis, her son. Bing hugged him. "She heard you." "I believe that." That February night changed both men. Louis never stopped touring, never stopped performing, but he changed how he approached it. Started writing more letters, making more phone calls, staying connected to the people who mattered. Bing made a promise that night. He'd bring his family with him on tours when possible, would prioritize time with his children, would never let success cost him the relationships that mattered. The friendship between Louis and Bing deepened into something unbreakable. They'd shared the worst night of Louis' life, had been vulnerable with each other, had seen past the fame to the flawed, grieving humans underneath. Over the years they performed together many times, always with a special connection, an understanding. When Louis Armstrong died in July 1971, Bing Crosby attended the funeral. He was asked to speak. Bing stood at the podium, looked at Louis' closed casket, and struggled to begin. Finally he spoke. "Louis Armstrong taught me many things. How to swing a melody, how to connect with an audience, how to bring joy to people's lives. But the most important lesson he taught me was on February 24th, 1947, the night his mother died. That night, Louis showed me the real cost of success, showed me that all the applause in the world doesn't matter if you lose the people you love along the way." Louis never got to bring his mother to see him perform. That regret never left him. And he made sure I understood, made sure I didn't make the same mistakes. Bing's voice broke, tears falling. Louis also showed me that it's never too late to honor the people we love. That every performance, every note, every moment can be a tribute to those who sacrificed for us. Louis played for his mother every night after she died, carried her with him in his music. And that's what I'll do now. Carry Louis with me. Remember his lesson. Remember that success means nothing if we forget why we wanted it in the first place. Bing couldn't finish. Sat down, sobbing, just as he'd done that February night 24 years earlier. Sitting with Louis on a dressing room floor. Two men, two griefs, one understanding. Today, that February night is remembered not just as a tragedy but as a turning point. The night Louis Armstrong stopped running from his grief and transformed it into art. The night Bing Crosby learned what really mattered. The night two legends became true friends. The trumpet Louis held that night is in a museum now, silent, still, but the music he played the next evening, do you know what it means to miss New Orleans, is still performed, still moving people, still carrying Mayan's memory. Thank you, Louis Armstrong, for your honesty, for transforming your deepest pain into your most beautiful music, for teaching us that success is hollow if we lose connection with the people who loved us before we were famous. Thank you, Bing Crosby, for sitting on a floor with a broken friend, for understanding, for changing your own life based on Louis' lesson, for carrying that wisdom forward. Thank you, Mayan Armstrong, for raising a son who changed the world, for sacrificing so much, for being the foundation of everything Louis became. That February night, that dressing room floor, with it, that shared grief, forever teaching us, forever reminding us that the people we love don't need our success, they need our presence. That time cannot be bought back. That regret is the heaviest burden we can carry, but also that grief can be transformed, that pain can become art, that our loved ones live on in everything we create. The stage lights have dimmed. The applause has faded. Louis and Bing and Mayan are all gone now, but that night remains, teaching, warning, inspiring, reminding us to call our mothers, visit our fathers, spend time with the people who matter, before it's too late, before we're sitting on a dressing room floor, holding a trumpet, wishing we'd made different choices. The music plays on, carrying their memory, carrying their lesson, carrying the truth they learned at such terrible cost. That success without love is failure. That fame without family is emptiness. That all the applause in the world cannot replace one moment with the people who loved us first. Always, forever, eternally teaching us what really matters. Was really matters. When really matters. Now, always now. Before the music stops. Before the final note. Before we run out of time, to say I love you, to say I'm sorry, to say thank you, to simply be present. That's Louis Armstrong's final gift. Not his music, not his fame, but his lesson, learned too late for him, but not too late for us. Always, forever.